What's up, guys? Ben here, bringing another video today. We're back. We're going to continue our EWC preview series. We're going group by group. We did Group D in our last video. We took a one-day break to cover the breaking news about the Boston breach. Breaking news, Boston breach. And we're going to talk about the Boston breach again. It seems like the swan song for them, but they're in a very interesting Group C along with Team Heretics, Miami Heretics, Toronto Ultra, and FC Black, aka Stallions. We're going to talk about this group. I'm going to give you my predictions on what I think is going to happen and what I assume is a pretty fun one. I think number one team's pretty obvious here, but I think all the other three teams have a good chance to get out. So let's talk about it. All right, so here is the group. I think, again, with the website, the way they list the seeds are a little bit funky. I don't know why they do it this way, but the way it should be seeded is Toronto Ultra will be your top seed, having gotten third at champs. You'll have Miami Heretics, who got top 6 in the second seed, Boston Breach, who did not make it to COD champs in the third, and then FC Black, aka Stallions. They're playing under Stallions for this event because their logo and branding is a little bit too close to Atlanta FaZe. They are going to be your last seed, having gotten top 3 at Challengers champs. And so if the Call of Duty Esports Wiki, which is usually pretty accurate, is correct, this is then how these matches will play out. So 1 and 4 are going to play each other. So we got Toronto versus Stallions, and then we got the Miami/Boston matchup, and then the winners will play each other to get out, and the losers will play to stay in, and then blah 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 blah. So you kind of get the point there. All right, let me go in order of how I think teams will kind of manage this group. And unfortunately for the Boston Breach, I don't want to pile on too much misery here, but I do believe that unfortunately they are probably going to be the last seed in this group. I actually would have put them as the third seed. I think. We'll get to Stallions and why I'm not super maybe high on them. I just think for me at this point, when you look at the current Boston Breach squad, which is right here on your screen with Cammy, Big Wake, and Purge coming over from the Omid team that got runners up at champs with ProLoot, but they had already been linked to a Boston move before that tournament. So there you go. I just failed to see with this squad how they're going to slay at a good enough level in a group where you've got a Miami team that plays super aggressive, a Toronto team that just really don't lose to teams like this, and to the point about Stallions, who I think kind of slaying wise are sort of on the same level, and I think have a little bit more about them than this Boston squad. And then on top of that, there's all of the external issues that Boston has. They've gotten kicked out of their practice facility, it seems like, as of today. The apartments, like, they have all this external stuff going on that I think is a massive distraction to this team. So I just really it's hard for me to see how they get past Miami. I think Stallions will lose to Toronto, and I think Stallions will end up beating them. And unfortunately for Boston, they will go 0-2. But I will say this, in a world where they do actually like kind of play decent at this tournament, let's say they lose to Miami, but they beat Stallions, and they may have to beat Miami again to get in. Listen, if you get the version of Big Wake that we've seen a bunch in Challengers, there's a chance if you finally get the Snoopy we saw at the beginning of the season before all of the, chaos that's going on in Boston, they have a chance. Purge, it's going to be tough to see him have a World Star Series, but he did it once in the CDL this year. You never know. Maybe he plays his best COD the first 2 days. And then Cammy, not really sure what you're going to get. So it's a big opportunity for a bunch of players on this team. But I think the imploding Boston situation might be too much of a distraction for them. I would have had them getting third in this group before all that came out a couple days ago. But unfortunately now, I just don't see them overcoming it. And I think this team will get last in this group. Now, let's talk about Stallions, aka FC Black. So this is their roster. It's been a lot of stability for them, which is fairly rare in Challengers. It's been mostly a very similar team now since a lot of the roster moves. Asians obviously come and gone. Dylan's joined in March when a bunch of the moves went down with a few of their players leaving, such as Geo and Kremp. And then Brack and Exceed have been there since the rip for this team. And the one thing that I think you could say about this team is that they have been very consistent as far as their performance against Challengers teams at lanes this year. They have 2 wins, and they probably should have 3. They mega choked the one at Miami. Unfortunately, at Challengers champs, the third place was, I think, due to some poor search and destroy play down the stretch, which was surprising because I actually thought they were a pretty good S&D team coming into the event. You know that they're going to have some very good disciplined sort of respawn kind of map set and some good depth there. Their S&D, I think, really let them down on the weekend, and that's why they unfortunately came up short and were not able to make the finals of the event. But you see, like, these guys have actually been like pretty successful in challenges this year, and they go into this tournament for me as an opportunity because a lot of these players have kind of talked their talk stack up against some pro teams and really backed it up and try and get back in the league, right? Exceed has been very vocal about where he thinks his level is and why, and the fact that he hasn't gotten any real chances on some pro teams so far this year. Same with Brack. Asims can't come and go, and he's played very good at the challengers level, having top KDs in search, which is, I guess, a little surprising during how he does at the pro level. And Dylan Rex has also played extremely well for this team. Like, all 4 players have been very good this year, and that's why they have 2 LAN wins. That's why they're one of the top challengers teams in the world, and they have an opportunity here against the Miamis and the Bostons of the world to get potential upsets, get to bracket play, get top 8, maybe you get top 4, and then a bunch of these guys could potentially get on the CDL teams next year. So again, look, for me, I just don't see them beating a Toronto Ultra team that has a very deep map pool that is going to really show a lot of strength on the newer maps. They're not probably going to be able, Stallions is not really going to be able to counter Toronto's strength on karate. So the path forward for Stallions here is very tough if you consider the respawn map pool. Like, they're going to have to, I think, steal a control off of Toronto, potentially win 2 S&Ds. The Neslo path, I just see it because I think Toronto's really got their number in most of the maps in hardpoint, unless they catch Toronto slipping in like a map 1 here again. We talked about this in our last video, like, first series, haven't played in a while. Maybe you go up 2-0 and you give yourself a chance in a game 5 type situation if the reverse sweep is on, but I just don't see the upset really happening here for Stallions. Although Toronto's record, the last 2 events, they have lost their first match. Winners round 1 at Champs, winners round 1 at Major 4. So you never know, but I just don't think it's very likely in this one. So at that point, they're going to have to basically beat Miami, I think, and Boston to really get out of this, because I think Toronto will get top seed. We'll get to them in a second. So it really, in my mind, comes down to that Miami versus Stallions matchup. And let's kind of bring in Miami and sort of talk about how I think that one is going to shuffle out. All right, so here are Miami's champ stats, because I think this is going to kind of give us our best kind of window into sort of maybe what they've been practicing on this after the event. They obviously had a pretty solid Major 4, getting fit 6, and they kind of followed up the same result at Champs. And I think this is kind of, again, where we talked about this throughout the year. I think beginning of the year, I was like, Miami top 6, top 8 Champs is probably where they're going to end up, and that's kind of where they did. I think top 6 is a really good result for this team. They spent most of the season trying to find their best kind of 4 lineup, and I expect probably some decent continuity with the squad here next year. Interesting to me about their performance at Champs, which if you see, they only played 3 series. They played Atlanta, who they lost to, Seattle, who they did beat, and then they lost to Thieves. You see that, unfortunately for Miami, they are on a pretty big slide right now in hardpoint. The 0-5 aside at Champs, you see they are 1-9 in their last 10, having lost 6 straight. And the only hardpoint map they won was against Toronto at Major 4 on Vista. So I think for Miami, you see that there is opportunity for a team like an FC Black or Boston if Miami's hardpoint is out of whack. The fact that these guys, played pretty much every map in the pool at Champs and couldn't find a win. We'll have to see if they're able to find hardpoint wins. But if you're a Miami fan, you really like this S&D record because they have been pretty good at S&D down the stretch here. They've been taking maps off of some really solid S&D squads, such as Atlanta. Seattle have been a pretty average S&D squad. Optic Texas were pretty good at it at Champs, even though they did not play Optic Texas at Champs. So 6-4 is not bad on the last 10. And I believe they went 3-1 at Champs. And then the 1-2 here in Control, and they're treading water in the game mode, could be a big thing. They need to try and find some bread and butters here, try and go deep at EWC, but nothing really too much, I think, to complain about here. I just think, look, for Miami, they got to clean up the hard point because they are and can be a tough out. And interestingly enough, you see that they have won their last 5 game 5. So going all the way back to May, when they have grinded out some series against 3 times against Seattle, once against Vegas, and once against Texas, they've actually won all of those game 5s. Now, mind you, none of those against like a Toronto or New York or a FaZe. But I mean, Optic Texas are champs, and they beat them in a game 5, at Major 4. So, okay. I just think for Miami, they got to figure out how to get better starts in these series. 0-3 in map 1s at Champs. Need to improve on that. Otherwise, there's some opportunity for an FC Black here. If you can get some strong respawns, there's a chance. So, okay. What do I think is going to happen here? Now that we've talked about most of the teams here. Listen, Toronto's going to run this group. I don't need to talk about them too much in here. You see that at Champs, they played pretty solid. And I think they have all the tools to get out of this group based on where they're at as a team. Control has been very good down the stretch, which was an area of concern that I had. where you see that they have beaten a lot of really good quality teams on Control. They're not playing Karachi, which is fine, but their Invasion and High Rise look very good. The Respawn, especially Hardpoint ad champs, a little bit iffy. Rio, still a struggle for them. Vista, they lost. They're obviously the world's best Karachi Hardpoint team, so that's not really a surprise there. 6-star 1 and 2. But 3 and 7 last 10, concern there for Hardpoint. We'll see if Toronto's put in some work. But I think off the good search play and the good control play, they have enough to, beat, I think, Stallions, probably like a 3-1. And then I think take Boston or Miami pretty clean. And then obviously we get to the weekend and we'll see how they stack up. It's all the top 4 teams. I've learned now, just throw stats out the window, to be honest, when we talk about top 4 teams versus top 4 teams on the weekend, because it just comes down to who's actually just like locked in and got their gameplay the best going into the weekend. But I will say for Toronto, they have a lot of, I think, riding on this tournament. If they don't win this one or make it to finals, I could see some major changes helping this team. Dylan Envoy played, I thought, pretty solid at champs. So I think his spot's really not in question. I think Jamie Inside is the one. If I had to pick a person to rotate out, might be the one who's potentially under fire for his seat on the team next year. So we'll see how Toronto stacks up. But I honestly believe that they're going to kind of cakewalk this group, and just comes down again to the Stallions, Miami, Boston trio. I have Boston getting 4th, and I'll be honest, the way that I saw Stallions play at Challengers Champs, I think when rubber meets the road, I got Miami beating Stallions in a game 5 to get out of this group, an absolute barn burner. But I won't be surprised if it goes either way, because I think there's a lot that both teams can do to kind of motivate themselves. I think it's going to be gritty. I think it's going to be a great series when I expect them to play for that qualification match. But right now I have Miami coming out. So Toronto, Miami out of the group. Stallions get 3rd, and then Boston gets 4th. That's how I have Group C stacking up. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. I don't think you guys probably disagree too much with this one. I think there's definitely upset potential in this group with Stallions, but I think Miami might be too hard of an out for them, and I'm maybe sleeping on Boston. You guys let me know in the comments what you think. You think I'm being too hard on Boston? I don't know, but let me know. Like you enjoy. We're going to cover Group B and A this weekend, so make sure you look out for that. And as always, guys, we'll see you on